Hey everybody, this is Matthew Soltesiak, and you're listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast, part of the Minute Media Podcast Network. The Detroit Lions are now in a new, grittier era, and we look beyond just the kneecaps when it comes to the analysis. I speak with a variety of guests and interview key players, gaining more insight on what makes this team go. Welcome to another episode. In this episode, we look at the Detroit Lions 90-man roster now that the NFL draft is over and rookie minicamp is in the books. We'll look at how the roster's shaken up, the strengths and weaknesses we see, that and more. Let's get to it, Lions fans.
Hey, this is Rob Rubik, and you're listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast.
Joining me today is Coach Jerry Angers, a former Michigan High School Coach of the Year. He's also named Coach of the Week by the Detroit Lions, and he is a scouting and training director for Bull Rush Sports. Coach, good to have you here.
Great to be here, guys.
All right, joining Coach and I is James Cook, the Sports Writer of the Year for Community Newspaper Holdings Incorporated. He's also the senior sports writer for the Traverse City Record Eagle. James, loving the new jersey, love the black hat. Good to have you here with us.
Yeah, had to go black on black today, and then the blue Kool-Aid to go with it.
Nice touch, nice touch. And Coach, you are looking pretty dapper yourself, and some fine looking Lions gear there yourself.
Oh yeah, it's the number one seller in the market in the country right now.
All right, well, as we get started, reminder to the listeners, tell your friends about the show. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all major streaming platforms, and of course, if you're looking for a video version, you can find us on YouTube as well. Now, as we get started, Coach Angers, you've got something you'd like to share with the listeners, talking a little bit about the More Than Four Foundation. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it's called More Than Four Foundation because federal cancer research funding goes to pediatrics. There's only about 4% that goes to them. So one of our locals football players, Pat Regan, who played at St. Francis, who also played at Michigan State, son had a rare cancer born with it and has had at 6 months old, he had his first surgery. And of course, since then, he's now 6, and Pat's mentality is his football mentality. He's going to do whatever he has to do to help his kid survive. So he started this foundation. So coming up, if you want to get some information on it, it's info at morethan4foundation.org. Looking for donations, looking for Lions tickets to raffle off, looking for Lions jerseys to raffle off, anybody that can come up with. Pat Regan's family, and of course this foundation that helps other pediatrics across the world. So anyways, thanks for listening. Hopefully we get some people to donate.
Awesome, Coach. Glad you're a part of that and you're helping promote it and try and get some more publicity and people involved as well. Okay, Coach. Let's start with rookie mini camp. James, you looked into that as well. Coach, what's one of your takeaways from the rookie mini camp? What's something that jumped out at you? Again, rookies were there. There were also some veterans that were there that were maybe trying to look to make the team or whatnot as well. So it wasn't everybody just a rookie. But obviously none of the Lions starters were there or anything like that.
I think it's just the stuff you read. Again, it's so hard to tell because it's a rookie mini camp, but like Tesla, he come out and they said everything, he's everything they thought he was going to be. Love it. His feet are unbelievable as wide out. All the guys they drafted, we moved the big, our boy from Georgia to center, which I really liked. I like seeing that Ratledge. They played him at center a ton. And of course, my new favorite, as we've talked about, Ahmed, the guy, did you see any of his interviews, you guys, he was so excited about going in and getting the food and all the stuff he can eat. And he is just so happy to be a part of an NFL team and so happy to be part of the Detroit Lions. And
Coach, I think those interviews with the players might have been more exciting and more interesting than the work they did on the field because you kind of got to know some of these guys as players, as human beings, actually. And so that kind of gave some insights. And yeah, Ahmed Hassanin, I mean, that guy is going to probably become a fan favorite. I mean, even though he's a later round draft pick,
And I think those were the things that stuck out. And I know the two safeties, Cannell from GV and Dan Jackson. I think they were 27 and 28. Those guys, they showed that they want to be part of this. And I think that what we brought in with what we already have, the competitiveness at camp is going to be crazy on who makes that 53 man roster. Can't wait to watch the development of all these guys.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. I think the Tate Ratledge thing, playing some center as well, was interesting. But of course, we know the Lions like to play positionless football for some players, for some positions, and cross training is essential on that offensive line. James, you did a little bit deep diving into this and got some observations of your own. Why don't you share those?
Yeah, well, one other guy to add on, I think that the Lions fans are going to like, and they've done a good job recently of, and I don't think they take this into consideration really when they're drafting a guy, but they've got guys with good personalities that I think the fans are just going to like.
Yeah.
And the wide receiver in the seventh round, love it. I think is another one of those guys. And his interviews during the mini camp just came off as one of those guys. People were comparing him to Jamal Williams as far as like likability for the media. Uh, uh,
Yeah.
so that's a pretty good thing because the media love that dude. That's just another thing I think from the fan perspective that the Lions are getting guys that the fans really can embrace too. In addition to what they do on the field. Now on the field, one of the guys who really stood out in the mini camp was Keith Cooper, who's a defensive end from the University of Houston. He was a guy that initially was reported that they signed him as an undrafted free agent, but then wasn't on the list when they released theirs. Turned out it was just a tryout for the mini camp, but he earned a roster spot from the mini camp. Got signed in the 90-man roster. They cut one of the other undrafted free agents they did sign to make room for him. And But they've also made a couple other moves since then too. They signed a tight end. They let Caden Prescorn go, who's one of the tight ends that we talked about right after the draft, like one of the good undrafted free agents that we thought might have a shot at maybe unseating, Kenny Yeboah or Zylstra or somebody like that. But they signed Luke Deal, who's a 2-year captain at Auburn. Those are those leadership intangibles that the Lions really seem to like. They also added Malik Taylor, former Packers wide receiver, a guy who has special teams experience and some return experience. So I'm going to guess if he's going to make the team, that's going to be how he's going to make it. But he's got to be a pretty good dark horse to make this roster. And then
Sure.
Raekwon Williams, who is a former Michigan State guy, so a lot of people probably recognize him, but he hasn't played in the NFL for a couple of years in a regular season game. He played a bit over 2 years, I think, in 2021 and 2020 for the Eagles, but has kind of bounced around since then and hasn't done a whole lot. But so those are some of the guys that they added. Taylor went to Ferris State too, so that's also of note.
Hey, what
All
can I
right.
say? Fellow Bulldog guys. I'm just saying. I know another great guy that played at Ferris.
All right, so we got to see some of the guys in action. We got to see some personalities come out through those interviews, through those conversations, which is great. Uh, Now we have a roster to look at. We have like a 90-man roster. Obviously, I think it was at 89, but it's ebbing and flowing right now. So we're going to go through position group by position group to see, hey, how does each group look now that the draft is over? There's a mini camp that's taken place, and you're pretty much set to go into training camp here. So let's start with the quarterback position. We've got Jared Goff, Hendon Hooker, and Kyle Allen, coach. Break down that position group. Not a big shock, little change at the number 3 quarterback position there. But what are your thoughts on this group and how you feeling about it?
Well, I mean, we know. I mean, we're going to arguably that Goff is one of the top 5, top 3, top 2, maybe the best quarterback in the NFL. I mean, we're going to argue that nobody's going to back it, but we know that how good he is. I think the Hooker thing. He's been around. He's been Love. How many years did Love sit under Rodgers and
3.
stuff like that? I mean 3, right? And I think I think he's a great second backup for us. I think he gives us some intangibles. because he's athletic. I think he's not. Everybody reads into, oh my God, they brought a high school football coach back to be number two over him in the playoff game, and then of course Allen's got experience, and he's going to push Hooker. So I think we're in great shape right there. I'm not worried about it. I'd like to have Cooper Rush as our second string backup quarterback, but that's not possible.
No, because he's playing with the Baltimore Ravens.
Exactly.
James, how about you, quarterback position?
Yeah, I think Allen adds some pretty good veteran, guy who's seen some NFL snaps into that competition with Hendon Hooker. Hooker's got all the upside. So he's obviously got the way higher ceiling than Allen, but I think Allen at this point has the higher floor with that experience. So it's good to have that depth. I think that they very well could go into this season carrying three quarterbacks on the 53. You've also got, I think Jake Fromm is still re-signed to a futures deal, so he could be a practice squad candidate too.
Okay. Well, no surprise here, right, with Jared Goff being the starting quarterback. But the backups, I mean, it's if you look at where we were 3 years ago, the backups compared to now, significantly different. We still don't know what we have in Hendon Hooker. I'm not going to read into the headlines on saying, this or that he's a total bust or whatnot. I think this training camp and this preseason is going to tell us a lot about Hendon Hooker. They wanted a guy with upside potential on a rookie deal. That way it wasn't going to hit the salary cap as hard. You weren't going to have to spend $10 million to get a backup or whatnot. So, any team with a quarterback, if your starting quarterback goes down, there's going to be a significant drop-off. And what we have in Hendon Hooker, we'll know more about that later on. I also think the Lions have an insurance policy, and if all else fails, you try and bring Teddy Bridgewater back in the second half of the season when his high school thing's over, if you have to go that route. So, this room's about as stable as you can get, and I'm comfortable with it. And, yeah, Kyle Allen, you've got a little bit more experience there, James, and a little bit more success on the NFL field than some of the other backups we've had. I think that's a good thing. All right, well, let's move over to the running back room. All right, running back-wise, we know Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, Craig Reynolds are your top three. Sione Vaki was a rookie last year. They got a couple undrafted free agents this year, Coach. It's top-heavy with a couple all-stars. The third guy is just a solid contributor going all the way back to Hard Knocks, so I think we know what people think about him. And Vaki's a former safety turned running back. Again, not a whole lot of influx or change here. What are your thoughts on this room?
Loaded. We know that. I mean, it's the best duo in the NFL. Arguably, there's no way anybody can argue with it. We may have the best running back in the NFL. We'll find out how he does this year. I mean, we know that. He's in the top three. I mean, he's in pretty good company because he's mentioned with Henry and those guys all the time. So Reynolds, again, steady Eddie, does the job. I mean, look at him last year when he gets in there, he makes plays. Vaki, I think, is going to have a little bit of breakout year and probably get some more reps in that. And I heard the rookies are doing pretty well too. So, again, they haven't been in camp. They're not getting hit. They're not getting smacked with pads and stuff like that. They're not in preseason games, but they still have some intangibles to help us. So extremely excited about this one. I heard they're still going to split time. Probably 60-40 instead of almost a 50-50, but I think we're in pretty good shape there.
Yeah, I don't see any real change. I think those are the four guys that are going to be on your roster when the season starts, unless something unexpected comes out of one of the undrafted free agents. But that's about as good of a running back room as you can ask for. James?
Yeah, I think you could see one of the undrafted free agents on the practice squad. Reynolds is maybe the guy who's on the fringe here this year. If he loses even a little bit of a step, I think his roster spot could be in jeopardy. Just because I think Vaki is young, he's going to overtake him at some point. It's just a matter of when. So there could be that movement, but Reynolds is still solid. We've seen what he can do and everything. So the running back room as a whole is just pretty solid. I like the Tyus kid, the rookie undrafted guy from Ohio. He seems like kind of David Montgomery-ish in what little I've seen of him. I think he's a guy that they could stash on the practice squad for sure.
All right. Well, those are probably the two of the easiest positions to talk about. So I guess we'll get into stuff that's got a little bit more controversy to it. Wide receiver. We know St. Brown, JMO, Tim Patrick, Khalif Raymond, those are your top four. By third round draft pick default, Isaac Taslaw is your number 5. Those are your top 5 returning or 4 returning receivers. Taslaw, new addition. You've got Tom Kennedy, Dominic Lovett, Ronnie Bell is on there. And I think that's it. We've got Jackson Meeks. We have Jacoby Keeney James and Dominic Lovett. I think I mentioned him already. Yes. So, we're looking at this room, and I know who know who the top starters are with the 4 guys returning. Taslaw, I think he's going to work his way in. He might start more on special teams than in the starting lineup. And as long as Tim Patrick's healthy and contributing the way I think people expect, I think Taslaw's numbers are going to be a little bit limited in snaps on the field. And I think they're going to work him into that role as the season goes on, or maybe the real vision is for next year, depending how things go this year. That's the top of it. And then we've got some other guys that are going to fill in some pieces or might surprise you on a couple of those, like that 7th round pick. Coach, what are you seeing on this receiving core, and how do you feel about the receiving position?
Again, TP, we talked about this earlier. TP's back after a full year of playing football, and not coming off injuries. So, he's just going to keep, I think he's going to continue to get better and give us more numbers. I think Tesla's going to definitely, it'd be awful nice to be able to go 6'4", 6'5", or 6'4", 6'4", and jump ball situations. I think the biggest thing, we know St. Brown, the biggest thing that I'm reading and loving and seeing is JMO. And how they are talking about he is going to go to another level this year with his work ethics, with his attitude, with his questions, with him. It sounds like he's done everything, knock on wood, to be better during the offseason. And I can't wait to see that, because, he had 1,000 yards last year. And I know that Morton, I saw a Morton thing the other day where he just says, "Oh, we're going to take some shots." So I think with that much speed, with height, and with St. Brown, I'm pretty excited about this and to see how it all plays out. And we got guys, if we get injuries, sounds like with Lovett and those guys. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing JMO explode like they believe he's going to explode.
Well, and that's crazy if he does, because he already took a big step forward last year. And so if he goes to another level, watch out. Yeah. James, this has got to be the best wide receiving core Lions have had at this point entering a season. I don't even know how far back you have to go, but the stability, the returning people, like Coach said, Tim Patrick's coming back after a complete season, and he played well. And you drafted a guy in the 3rd round, and you've brought in some other people. So what are you seeing out of this room? And I mean, I guess how confident? You got to be super confident, but what are your thoughts?
I really like this group as a whole. I mean, St. Brown, obviously, what more can you say about him? Jamison Williams has really started to step up. They did the 5th year option on him, so they have an infinite amount of confidence, I think, in him to even keep progressing past what he was last year. We know what we have in Raymond. He's a great return guy, a very solid slot receiver. And Patrick is, a great guy to have coming into that room with his blocking, with his size. And I think maybe he has another step this year, like Jerry said, being a year off of those injuries, being a full year. He could be even faster than last season, even though he's a year older. And then you add Taslaw, who has everything you could ask for in a wide receiver. I mean, he's 6'4". He can jump. He can get the 50-50 ball. He's got good hands. He runs pretty good routes. He blocks well. He seems to have a good personality, and everybody loves him. I mean, I don't see a negative with this kid. And then Lovett looks like basically Khalif Raymond too. A guy I think that's going to be your slot receiver next year maybe, and return guy. So I think I really like what they've done with this position. It went from people clamoring to we don't have anything behind St. Brown and Jamison Williams a year ago to this is pretty well settled. I mean, it's pretty low.
Well, James, I gotta have to ask you a controversial question then. Is this year Tom Kennedy does not make the practice squad?
I think so. Yeah. And you've got Meeks and Keeney James, who are both, both had pretty good college careers and have pretty good NFL profiles. So I think that those guys are definite contenders for the practice squad. You're only allowed to have so many guys out of your 16 in the practice squad that have more than like a year or so of NFL, a year or two. I think it's 2 years of NFL experience. So Kennedy would take up one of those six spots.
Yeah.
So Fromm would be one, and you've got a bunch of other guys who would take those. Maybe a guy like Colby Sorsdahl, who's been in the league for 2 years now, is going to be on the practice squad now, and he would be one of those vet
Ooh,
guys.
those are some shots fired right there. We haven't even gotten to that part of the group, but yeah. Well, again, as the roster gets bigger and better, not bigger, but well, some guys are bigger. But as it gets deeper and more talented, we've seen things change. Tight end group. Sam Laporta, Brock Wright, those guys are back. Those guys will be the starters. Shane Zylstra, and we picked up Kenny Yeboah. Plus, there's a couple undrafted free agents. I think Zach Horton, is still with the team. And I think they've already made a movement on another one. Just having Laporta and Brock Wright there, I feel great about this room. You're bringing those top two guys back in as Zylstra. If the Lions carry 3 active, I would expect him to be in that spot. I think he went between the active and the practice squad last year, if I remember correctly. I kind of expect it to be the same there. No real change on the tight end group. Coach?
Yeah, I think they're looking for that one tight end that's just a phenomenal blocker. Laporta struggles a little bit, but then he makes up for it too with effort, stuff like that. Brock Wright again is some of his grades. Again, I don't, you look at some of his grades in some games where he struggled. So again, a very solid, successful with the two that we've already talked about on the top. Zylstra again is that receiving type of guy, and then Yevo, I think he's going to be the big blocker. So. Again, definitely not hurting, and definitely up there with some of the better tight end groups in the league.
Yeah, and Kenny Yeboah is the question mark, right? The new guy brought into the situation that could affect things for that number 3 spot. James, any thoughts on the tight end group?
Yeah, and like you said, I kind of see Zylstra as being the fourth guy here, and being on that practice squad and being somebody that they can bring up when the game plan calls for a fourth tight end or if an injury or anything like that. Kenny Yeboah is that blocking tight end that they want. Laporta and Wright are decent blockers, but not killing people out there. So I think that they want that tight end they can bring in that they just know will just take somebody to the ground and open that edge. And Kenny Yeboah can do that and still be, a capable receiver. He's not going to break big plays like Sam Laporta does. But he's a guy who can be a chain mover.
All right. Well, for all those guys to be successful, you need an offensive line. So let's move to that offensive line spot right there. Let's go with starters. Well, we got Decker, Glasgow, Ragnow, and Sewell all back. Christian Mahogany was on the team last year. He did start a couple games, so let's just put him in at right guard. So we'll just call those your 5 starters. The Lions drafted Tate Ratledge. He may be a starter. You also have Dan Skipper, Miles Frazier, who was drafted. You got Giovanni Manu, Coyote Awashika, Netani Muti, Kobe Sorsdale, Jamarco Jones, Michael Neese, and Kingsley Igukan. That's a lot of guys right there. I kind of mixed in the guards, the centers, the tackles, all that. But, man, I after seeing this draft and the players we added, I feel really good. Is there still maybe a weakness at tackle? Maybe. Although, you've got some guys that could play tackle that you just drafted as well. So I think you've got some versatility, and it's not just versatility, it's youth versatility that I'm really excited about this offensive line, Coach. I like the guys we got coming back, and I like the influx of youth there. And not just Ratledge, but Miles Frazier is a nice addition too.
Oh, for sure. Our starting 5 with Mahogany. I mean, we saw him. He held his own and had some pretty good blocks and played well when he started. So, he kind of was behind the 8 ball last year because he was sick and he missed all those games and all those practices. And yet he still came in and started and played well. So I don't think we're definitely hurting there. The 2 guys we drafted are both just dogs. They got, both of them and stuff from, again, I'm reading in reports. I've watched film on them. They play a little high in their run blocking. They'll stand up a little bit, which is what you hear all the time. But they're still two nasty guys that started in really good college football programs. And in Rutledge, of course, that center guard concept, that's that Glasgow replacement down the road, or could start over them. So Manu Giovanni's the one I am really excited to see, just because I saw a bunch of his off-season workouts that he's training out in that place in with the ex-NFL guy, OLP, I think it is. And just this, looking at that body and the athleticism and how much it looks like he's put into work there is going to be, interesting to see if he becomes that backup tackle, down the road. So, we're deep, and you look at it and you see a lot of like Kingsley's. He's the center too, right? And he's got to be going, oh boy. So yeah, it'll be definitely interesting to see. And of course, we got Skipper, so I think it's deeper. I believe it's deeper than it was last year, and even deeper than the year before that, of course. I'm really looking forward to. We have a lot of bodies that can fill in when guys need a rest or need to, and not play on broken feet like Rags does.
Yeah, I love the depth of this. And Giovanni Manu, he's going to be a real interesting to see with that second year. And Colby Sorsdal, this is a very important offseason for him. And, I think James alluded to it a little bit. It'll be interesting to see where he ends up. Is he a second teamer on this, or is he someone that might float back and forth between the practice squad? Or, I mean, that's kind of crazy to think at this point, but you just said it, Coach. It's a pretty deep room, and it may be the deepest room they've had since actually Campbell and Holmes took over, James.
Yeah, I mean, I think Sorsdal, to have a shot at making the team, is going to have to beat out Glasgow or Skipper.
Yeah.
I mean, that's who else is he going to take a job from?
Yeah.
Decker, Ragnow, Mahogany, Ratledge, Frazier, Sewell, Manu are all pretty much guaranteed roster spots at this point, I think. So, the only guys that I think that could be possible for him to pass would be Glasgow and Skipper. And that's not going to be an easy task. This is a pretty deep offensive line all of a sudden. They went from having a really great starting offensive line the last few years to now having a really great backup line behind it as well. They didn't have great depth. They were, signing undrafted free agents and playing them, guys like Awashika and stuff like that whenever they had injuries. But now they've got those guys in house already. So the depth on the offensive line is just pretty incredible. I mean, you could see within a year or two. I mean, would you be shocked if the starting offensive line was Sewell and Manu at the tackles, and then Mahogany, Ratledge, and Frazier inside?
The succession plan is in place. I don't know when it'll happen, but they're building for the future for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think the offensive line's in great hands. This draft changed that a lot, I think, in a lot of people's eyes, because adding Ratledge and Frazier really helped. Plus, I mean, the Mahogany pick from last year, man, that thing could really be paying dividends. All right, well, let's jump over to the defensive side of the ball. Defensive tackles, projected starters are DJ Reader, Levi Onwuzurike. You might even have Tyleik Williams in there at that spot. Reserves include Roy Lopez, Ahmed Hassanin, Josh Pascal, Broderick Martin, Makai Wingo, Al-Qaedin Muhammad, Pat O'Connor, Miles Adams, Chris Smith, Nate Lynn, Isaac Ukwu. There's a lot of people there. I think I threw the defensive ends in there, though, too, which I guess would have Aiden Hutchinson and Marcus Davenport as your starters. Let's just go all defensive line on this one, guys. Coach, this was a banged-up group last year. They brought some pieces in. Give us your breakdown. What are you thinking?
Well, I mean, we got injuries that we have to, we talked about injuries a few times with this team last year, but Wingo, and then those guys coming back, and we're gonna have to fill in for those guys. And I think they went out and got some guys that are gonna fill in, get some guys that we pulled off, like Roy Lopez, again, another guy that's excited to be here. Williams is just, I watched some more film on him the other day, and dude, he was underrated, man. he did some things that again, because you had Sawyer and Ohio State was pretty much loaded in that situation, and then Michigan had those great D linemen. But I think Williams is going to be he's going to shock the league next year. There's just something about him. And then my boy, we already talked about him numerous times from Boise, man. We're going to call him AH because he's high octane. And Pascal, and Pat O'Connor and those guys. There's going to be some guys that played significant minutes for us next year. They're going to struggle to even make the squad level, maybe get on the practice squad again. It's deep. And I think we have enough guys to offset Hutch. And we have to be deep because we have guys coming off. McNeil coming off late. Probably mid-season, maybe earlier. I don't think they'll. When you look at that, I don't think they're going to force McNeil back early, or not. They won't force him, but say, hey, when he says I feel great, they may say, awesome. You're going to feel way better next week, and that's when they're going to play him. So I just think there's a lot there, and again, building depth is what the Lions continue to do. And building players at any point, any one of those guys on that list right there, I don't fear any of them playing in a game for us.
No, that's the thing, right? They're you hear about, like high ceiling or high floor, low ceiling type stuff for some players or coaches. And the Lions are raising the floor on the depth chart. Like they're raising that floor. So they have more depth. So you're not afraid when somebody goes in. And we know Lee McNeil's coming back later in the season. So they've got Roy Lopez. They've got Tyleek Williams in there. And as we talked about before, Williams is going to be great if DJ Reader doesn't come back after this year because it's the end of his contract. So the interior defensive line, I think most Lions fans are really good with. The defensive end, there's a lot of people that want another defensive end opposite Aiden Hutchinson. That's not just Marcus Davenport. Ahmed Hassanin, I'm not counting that guy out, but I don't know that he's going to be a major contributor his first year. I mean, anything's possible, but there is a learning curve, and it might take him, some time to get into that rotation. But James, what are you seeing on the defensive line?
Yeah, I think Hassanin he'll see some snaps, but I don't know that he's not going to be close to starter level snaps. I mean, you've got Hutchinson is going to play, if he's healthy, he's going to play almost every down at right end. Maybe take a few plays to get a breather off here or there. But I mean, otherwise, when Hutchinson's normally in his normal self, he plays almost every down. So then you got Davenport, Pascal, and Muhammad splitting time at the other end, which is a nice combination. They all do a little bit different things. So I think that you can totally have a good defense with those guys at defensive end. We saw how good the defense was the first couple of seasons with Davenport was up there, and not getting a lot of sacks, but getting a lot of pressure. So I think that this group is pretty good. I mean, I think they'll carry 11 defensive linemen, and that's not counting Lee McNeil.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, because I don't know who they cut out of all those guys that we mentioned. I mean, what the most likely one, I guess, would maybe be Muhammad, and he was pretty solid last year down the road. I mean, but out of those 11 names that we mentioned, Broderick Martin maybe, and Muhammad would maybe be the two that are most on the edge.
Yeah, Broderick Martin, this is going to be, he's like Kobe Sorsdal, right? This is the big year for him. You got to see a big step forward. Yeah, and we'll get into that. I understand that people want more at defensive end than just Marcus Davenport, but this is where sometimes you live in that world of embarrassment of riches, and you just look for a spot that might be weak, but you forget that you've got 7 other spots that are stronger than your opponents, and you just are like, it's like, you're stacking the fantasy football roster, and yeah, so that being said, and we'll come back to this, I do think the Lions will make some sort of a move yet, maybe, for defensive end before the season starts. And I wouldn't be opposed to that, and I actually kind of support that, and we'll get into that. But let's jump over to linebackers. We got Anzalone, Derek Barnes, Jack Campbell. 3 solid guys coming back. You brought in Grant Stewart. You've got some other guys back, and Anthony Pittman. You've got Trevor Nowaski, Ezekiel Turner. You've got Abraham Beauplan, Mitchell Agude, and Duron Gilbert. Coach, solid linebacking core. I did not mention fan favorite here because he is injured, but I'm not sure when he's coming back. When's Rodrigo coming back? Is that going to be a little bit late, we think?
Yeah, because it was late in the season when he got hurt. So Barnes is. I saw a picture of Barnes the other day, and man, his leg looks small. When he hurt. So, that may be a concern, but I think they're saying he's going to be ready. So, but
Okay.
yeah, we don't even, Rodrigo's not in there because we're not sure when he's back. But that's another one of the guys. I think the good thing is Grant will be, a good specialty teams guy for us that can fill in. Turner's got his upside in certain situations and his downside in others. Pittman's been around the block. Trevor, of course, was playing 2 and 3 different positions last year, and hopefully he's gonna fill in and do a great job. But I think the thing that we're missing, that I've been reading about and talking about, is Jack Campbell on the level Shepard and the linebacker and those guys believe he is going to be playing at this year.
Okay.
The level is they're just saying, and I was looking at some of his grades, whether it was next gen or whether it was PFF and stuff, and his coverage grades as the season, especially when Anzalone went down, Jack Campbell. We look at his numbers; it was unbelievable, and with him and Anzalone, so anybody we can fill in, even if D Barnes isn't totally healthy or at the level he was playing at, we can baby step that with what Jack Campbell and Anzalone can do. And look at that front D line. We could go 330, 340. So it's gonna fit right in, and it'd be happy when Rodrigo's back and Derek's full, 100%.
Makes sense. James, a solid linebacking core, a lot of depth going in. Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I saw a thing the other day, and I can't remember who posted it. It was somebody on Twitter. They had a chart of players who were drafted in the last 2 years who could become the best player at their position
Yeah.
with in short time. And Jack Campbell was listed as the linebacker there. So the league, I think, knows what he can be. The Lions know what he can be. I think he's still got steps that he can take. He was very good last year. I think Barnes will be used a little bit differently, I think, this year. I think they're going to blitz him more. Um, it seems to be kind of like what some of the coaches have been hinting at a little bit, is that they'll use him to rush the passer a little bit more, and I like that. I mean, that was supposed to be one of his strengths coming out of college at Purdue, and we haven't seen it a whole lot. So it'd be great to see it. And the depth that the Lions have at linebacker, it's pretty great there too. Stewart, Nowaski, rock solid. Pittman, Turner, Agude, Beauplan, all good guys they could have on the practice squad, can play great special teams. The depth here is pretty good too.
All right. Well, let's move to the back half of the defense. All right. The secondary, we've got the defensive backs. DJ Reed's the newcomer, replacing Carlton Davis in the starting lineup, presumably, expectedly. Terrion Arnold and Amik Robertson, those are your projected starters. We're going to have Enos Rakestraw back, another familiar face there with Khalil Dorsey. Then you're bringing in Avante Maddox, Rock Yassin, Stanley Thomas Oliver is there, and then got an undrafted free agent as well. And so looking at this room, it looks pretty deep, Coach. What are you thinking? What's your make of it?
Well, T. Arnold, he's got his work cut out for him, that's because he's going to be the number one guy. He already said he wants to be the number one guy. Let me read something off to you. Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, A.J. Brown, Malik Neighbors, Mike Evans, Terry McClure, D.K. Metcalf, D.J. Moore, Jerry Jeudy, and Rashid Rice. That's who TA is going to have to cover this year. So
he's going to be busy.
That's a pretty good group, and so that'll be fun. So again, second year, he has got so much upside. He's got that just enough cockiness to where he's going to back it up, and he's going to work, and he's going to work as hard as he possibly can to back it up. And I'm just excited about that. We know what Robertson's all about. Undersized, undermanned, not big enough, but he's got a chip on his shoulder. Reed is so happy to be here. And then Enos Rakestraw is the one that they say should have a big step this year. again, injuries and stuff like that last year. And, Dorsey, I mean, seeing we got, it's that again, deeper than it has been in a long time. And I think we have some guys that are going to be able to man people up, and it's going to be exciting to watch these guys bang with people.
All right. Yeah. And, we have no drop off in losing, our number one defensive back. At least, I put the guy in the same category, James. And Rakestraw, coach, we're all hoping he's going to take a big second step. I mean, you forget he was a second round draft pick last year. So, as far as defensive backs go, and you brought in multiple veterans here,
Yes.
this is about as good of a defensive back room as we think we've had, again, since this team took over, as far as Sheila, Brad, and Dan. And so, what's your make of all this here as well, James?
The corners, I'm kind of repeating myself. I love the depth that they've assembled at this position unit. Arnold, Reed, Robertson, Rakestraw, Dorsey, and Yasin at corner. I think that Maddox is going to be more of a safety than a corner, but he can also play there. He's kind of a poor man's Brian Branch, and that he can play wherever you put him in the secondary. He has experience playing everywhere. He can play high safety, he can play low safety, he can play outside, he can play nickel. And he's a veteran, so he knows what he's doing. I think that's a great addition, kind of a great surprise addition that nobody's talking a ton about really. In that he's just such a versatile guy, and Jackson at safety is going to be another one too. But Rocky Asin is a good veteran. I mean, he's your sixth corner, and that's not if you count Maddox as a corner.
Right.
So the depth here is just great.
It is, and we're going to need it because Coach pointed out all those guys that Terrion's going up against, or DJ Reed will be going up against. We know the schedule, and so it's going to be a gauntlet. And yeah, but it's not just talent. We've got youth. I mean, Terrion Arnold, Enos Rakestraw, right? Second year in the league for each of those guys. And so this is exciting. This is a great step in the right direction. This is the secondary that they've been trying to build for 4 years. Now, it's capped off with two amazing safeties, Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch. I mean, you can't ask for a better safety duo than that. The area that you wonder about, though, has to be the backup for safety. And Avante Maddox may be your answer to that. James brought him up. Maurice Norris, Eric Hallett, Lauren Strickland, and they drafted Dan Jackson. Coach, I think the starters speak for themselves. The depth, I think, to me, screams a little bit of question there, just in case you need somebody. We saw with Iffy, being out a lot of the season last year. Fortunately, we had two other guys. But break down the position. How you feeling about the safety spot?
Well, I mean, we know what we have there with the two starters, and James alluded to it. Maddox could be that guy that's going to play that iffy position or come in when they want to bring Branch down into the box. Strickland had a great camp last year, you guys, and so he's kind of one of the ones that we don't talk about. And then Dan Jackson, the guy walked on to become a captain at Georgia. Come on. That's another one of those guys and he's got some upside. I mean, he's a hitter. He wants to hit. He wants to make sure he jars you loose of the ball. Again, the depth concept. Yeah, it'd be nice to still have Iffy back there, but we didn't have him really at all last year. Who stepped in? I think Strickland's going to have that second year thing. Jackson, of course, has got to go, but I'm gonna definitely back up James on the Maddox thing. I think they brought him in for that reason. And another veteran guy to help these young guys that we just talked about. So, and of course, Joseph and Branch, what more can be said, but they're the best duo in the game, hands down. Again, people want to argue, let's go. Let's put film on. Ain't happening.
All right, James, what do you want to add to this about the safety group?
Yeah, I don't know. Did you guys see the tweet from DJ Reed about just how happy he was to be playing with Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph?
Yes.
Like he couldn't believe it that he's playing with two safeties this good.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just great. And I think Maddox and Jackson are pretty solid depth at safety. So, four is what you need. You've got Strickland, who showed a lot of potential. Um, this is another position that I think is deep, not maybe as deep, but I mean, you got four guys for two spots essentially at safety, which is the same as you got six guys at corner for three spots. Because we didn't talk a whole lot about Khalil Dorsey, but I mean, he took a step last year, and they started really trusting him with playing a lot more coverage than just being a special teams guy. Just before he got hurt, he was getting in a lot of those sub packages. And his injury is a broken leg, so he should come back from that pretty good. Um, this the secondary again, really really deep. Barring a historically injury plagued year like last year, and that's what they're giving themselves an insurance plan for.
Yeah, yeah, and again, it's not an embarrassment of riches. Maybe it is, but this is a well constructed roster. I mean, it feels like a broken record to keep saying it, but sometimes you just don't realize how good it really is. And we have to talk one more group because Coach Dave Fitt probably would not appreciate if we left them off the list. But we got to talk special teams because we know it's important to the Lions. You got the surprise kicker of the year last year, Jake Bates. You got Jack Fox, the one of my favorite punters, and then you got Hogan Hatton as the long snapper. It looks like those three are going to be the three. They might bring in a leg, but I don't think they brought in another kicker yet for camp, and they often bring in a second one. I haven't seen that they have. But I expect those three guys to be the guys. I know they recently, I think last year, they extended Jack Fox, which I like because I love the fact that the guy can play quarterback, or he did play quarterback. We don't want him to, Jim Arnold used to be the emergency quarterback for the Lions back in the day, the punter, right? But I just like the fact that we can do fake punts and throw the ball. I'm not looking for Jack Fox to get in any reps under center. But special teams wise, and then kick returners, you've got Reynolds back there as your main kick returner. We've talked about who that second guy is going to be because we saw it, Craig Reynolds or Tom Kennedy at times. And I think we're looking to see who can emerge as that second kick returner. And then punt returning, you've got Raymond back there. And I guess, I don't know if St. Brown's also listed, although I don't see St. Brown doing any returning. So, Coach, what are your thoughts on the kicking and the snapping or the returning?
Well, we thought, Fox flips the field every game, and especially in a critical situation. We know that he's up there. He's, if not the best, he's number two. Bates, it's just going to keep getting better and better for him. We saw how Campbell and the staff and Flip used them the year, how he, as the year went on, he started kicking longer and longer and longer and longer field goals. And we know that he can make a clutch. And, Hogan's a good special teams, long snapper, he covers well. So yeah, we're very deep there. The return thing will be interesting. That's when that Dominic Lovett, I kind of look at him. I wonder if he ever returned because he's got some juice in his feet. Man, does he have some shake and some of those guys they brought in. So, that may be a way for some of these guys, as backup wide receivers and become those return guys. Again, we want two guys back there, especially on kickoff return, especially with the way they changed it, that we want a threat, not like what happened last year in the playoff game.
Yeah, because I think I said Reynolds and Dorsey maybe, but yeah, Raymond. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see who they have back there. I expect Raymond to be your punt returner and your kick returner. Punt returning, I don't see St. Brown doing that at all, unless there's a time you just want someone to make a fair catch or something. You just want him to catch the ball because he's pretty good at doing that. James, thoughts on special teams?
Yeah, I mean the three specialists are pretty obvious. I think that they're all pretty much locks. I think your second returner is Dorsey at this point. I mean, we saw in the Titans game last year what he could do when unleashed there in the return game. And I think Lovett is a guy that they're going to look at being that return guy. He didn't do it a whole lot at Georgia, but just because he had guys in front of him, kind of thing. Now, I think he's got the perfect skill set for it. So I think they're definitely going to be looking at doing that.
All right. Well, guys, final roster thoughts here. I mean, it's still a work in progress, believe it or not, because the season doesn't start for almost 4 months, right? They can do minor tweaks. I expect no major moves, but I expect some minor tweaks to happen. Some veterans could still get cut by other teams. There could be some cap casualties. And there are still other veterans out there unsigned, right? I mean, there's one we're thinking of, Zadarius Smith. I mean, just different guys out there that haven't signed with anybody yet. So it's a work in progress, but knowing that it's a work in progress, Coach, any thoughts on it? Strengths, weakness, concerns, or hopes, or wishes, or just overall analysis?
I'm excited about it. We talked about it. I mean, we went through all those positions, and I even as a pass rushing situation, if we don't go and get somebody, we got to remember Levi is going to be moving back outside as soon as McNeil comes back, and we have some I think Lopez is a pressure collapse the pocket guy. And so I think Hutch is still going to get loose. Hutch is going to be a wrecking ball. He's going to be a lunatic out there because he missed all that time. I'm just hopeful, stay healthy, please. And so, and then we got some great stuff in the back end. So I'm not, yeah, if we go out and we get another edge rusher, guy that we can stand up and come off the edge. But again, James already talked about Barnes. Okay. If Barnes could be coming off the edge on that, maybe they were going to work Trevor on that. I mean, we have a ton of pieces. If we go into the season right now with whatever 53-man roster they pull off here, I'm pretty excited about it.
All right. James, you thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, and there's a couple other guys I think that that we didn't even get to really talk about. The Cooper, the defensive end who made it out of minicamp, I think is a guy who's definitely a practice squad candidate, maybe even somebody who could pressure a guy like Muhammad. He's got the perfect size that the Lions are looking for at defensive end. I think I've mentioned this 10 times, probably the last 10 episodes. How they like the big defensive ends, especially on the left side, and he's 6'5", 280. And was pretty productive in college. Looked good in the mini camp. I guess was like the kind of the standout player on defense. So he looked good. And then they've also got another developmental defensive tackle that Australian or New Zealand rugby player that they brought in, who's Laki Tassi. Pretty catchy name, and just a massive human being. Like I can't imagine seeing him and Manu going head to head in practice. Like I would almost pay to be able to just watch that because Tassi is a massive human being and a rugby player, so he moves pretty well for that. And he also is a free practice squad spot because he qualifies the international player program, so they can keep a 17th guy on the practice squad with him.
Cool. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how some of those guys do, and I love the fact that you bring the international guy, and you never know what you'll get on that. I've not been on the bandwagon of the Lions need to draft a defensive end, and they need a better defensive end, but I am going to say this. Like, if your team is this well built, you got to find a way to bring Zadarius Smith back. You need to bring a veteran in there that if something happens to Davenport or Hutch again, that you've got one more guy already on your roster. And the reason Zadarius Smith makes so much sense is you're not breaking the bank and mortgaging the future to get it done. You can get him at an affordable price, hopefully just a little bit less than what he would have cost you if you kept him. And he seems like a perfect fit. He was already there. He knows the schemes. He knows the locker room. Sounded like he was a great fit. And he gives you one more veteran presence. And Zadarius, I got to believe he knows how well this team is built and put together, that he's got to have an inkling of a desire to come back, and maybe just waiting for all the pieces to fill in the puzzle before he comes back. But it just seems like that would be a smart move, because even Brad Holmes said it was hard to find a defensive end he could trade for during the season before the deadline. So stack that up with one more guy, just a one-year contract on somebody that has something in the tank that could be a rotational player. I'm going to say that would be the one smart move I'd like to see them make before the season starts. And that might not be till, July or August, but I hope something happens there. All right, folks. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. Please tell your friends and family about the show. Remember, find us on social media platforms as well as major streaming platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. We'd love to hear your thoughts and get your reviews. You can check out more episodes and content at notthesameoldlions.com. And until next time, stay gritty, my friends.